Question 76. Reality of Mi'raj, Ascent. Had the Mi'raj of the Prophet taken place physically or in a spiritual state? Please also tell us why it became necessary for God to carry him to the Masjid-i-Aqsa, furthest mosque. Why were the miracles which were to be shown to him by God not shown in the Masjid-i-Haram, sacred mosque, i.e. Kaaba, but were shown in Masjid-i-Aqsa? Answer. 1. Mi'raj is the name of the inner unveiling and the spiritual ascension which is the result of zikru ibadat. Divine proximity and closeness is in an internal and spiritual way, not in a physical way. By the higher world, Alam-e-Ulwi is meant the world of spirituality which is found in a non-spatial state. 2. When God is not contained in the heaven and earth and is contained only in the heart of the faithful servant, Bandaye Mu'min, then after the preference of this throne of the heart, the question of any other throne cannot arise, and all those verses in which there is the mention of God establishing equality on the throne needs ta'wil. From this, it necessarily follows that in Islam, it was the Prophet who observed the miracles and wonders of the throne of the heart first and in the brightest light, and the Mi'raj had taken place in this way. Your second question is related to the verse which is in the beginning of the chapter, the children of Israel, Surah 17, in which the carrying of the Prophet from the Masjid-e-Haram to the Masjid-e-Aqsa is mentioned. It should be known that according to the Quran, Masjid has two meanings. One is the place of prostration, which means a mosque and a house of worship, and the other is Zikru Ibadat, as mentioned in Surah 7, Ayat 31. Therefore, Masjid-e-Haram means that sacred supreme name Ism-e-Azam, which was given to the Prophet in the beginning, and Masjid-e-Aqsa means that miraculous Ism-e-Azam of spiritual height and further spiritual elevation was given to him later on, i.e., at the time of spiritual Mi'raj. In this sense, this Zikr-e-Ilahi, i.e. Ism-e-Azam, is called Masjid-e-Aqsa, or the furthest mosque, in which were hidden abundant spiritual and luminous miracles. In the ta'wili background of Ism-e-Azam are hidden the ranks of prophethood and imamat. Answer. 1. When you have accepted the reality that God is one, it is also certain that his religion and book also have to be one. For his habit or tradition or law is one and the same thing. Religion is another name for his divine law. This is also the case with the heavenly book, because it is the spiritual and written form of the true religion. Therefore, it is not separate from his religion. 2. It is mentioned in the Quran everywhere that the heavenly book in its origin is one. Similarly, the religion of nature, Islam, is also one from the beginning to the end, and the prophets and the imams are also one as a single soul. 3. It is said in the Quran in the beginning, all people were one community when God sent unto them prophets as the bearers of good tidings and as warners, and revealed therewith the book with the truth, that it might judge between humankind concerning that wherein they differed. Surah 2, Ayat 213. Seen in the light of this verse, it becomes clear that although apparently there are many heavenly books, but in its origin there is only one book, which is in different forms in different languages. With respect to the exoteric, Tanzil, and esoteric, ta'wil, the same one book is common among all the prophets and the imams. It is quite clear that when the book of God in reality is one, and the goal of all the prophets and imams is one, the true religion too is also one, from the beginning to the end. Question 78. Mortal sin. What is the mortal or the greatest sin which cannot be forgiven? Please explain in detail. Answer. The mortal or greatest sin which cannot be forgiven is shirk, associating someone with God, or as God says in the Quran, God forgives not that partners should be ascribed to him. He forgives all save that to whom he wills. Whoso ascribes partners unto God has wandered far astray. Surah 4, Ayat 116. It should be well understood that as shirk is the greatest sin, to escape from this and to choose the path of Tawheed, believing in one God alone, and his resurrection is the greatest rewarding deed. However, if shirk and Tawheed had been ordinary and comprehensible as the common people think, then they did not have some secrets, all people would have easily attained salvation and none would have gone astray. Obviously, this is not the case. Rather, they contain some secrets. Through investigation, this verse, we come to know that shirk results in going very far astray. In this connection, the concept of the straight path and the true guide comes before us, because going astray is that state and condition of a person who has fallen away from the straight path and the true guide. This is on the one hand shows that shirk and going astray have the same meaning, and on the other hand that Tawheed and guidance are not separate from the straight path and the Imam of the time. Now we have to see whether in religion the ma'rifat or recognition of God is universally accepted or not. It is obvious that no Muslim can deny this fact, for Islam is the straight path, i.e., the path leading to the presence of God, which has 4 stages: Shariat, Tariqat, Haqiqat, and Ma'rifat. Among these stages, Ma'rifat is the final stage in the sense that the Ma'rifat or recognition of God is attained after having passed through all the distances on the path of religion. Only when God is recognized in this way does one get rid of shirk, which is the greatest sin, and going the furthest away from the path of religion, otherwise not. It is because of this that in the beginning I said that shirk and Tawheed are not what the common people think. While it is true that Ma'rifat is attainable in the light of the guidance of the guide appointed by God and the Prophet, and that the real Tawheed comes after Ma'rifat, it is obligatory upon mu'mins to endure always for the knowledge of the recognition of God. In addition to this, regarding shirk, see the well-known book Wajidin, Discourse 43 by the renowned Hakim Nasir Khusrau. May God sanctify his secret. The summary of his discussion is that according to Ta'wil, shirk means to accept any other imam in the place of the true imam. Otherwise, after accepting God as such, none can conceive the association for any other entity with him. Question 79. Angels. What kind of creatures are angels? What are their characteristic qualities? Answer. 1. Angels are the name of spiritual and luminous creatures. They are in the position of the pure souls of the perfect man and true mu'mins. Owing to this, the Quran has also alluded some of the exalted human beings angels, In connection with this, study the verses Surah 6 Ayat 9, Surah 17 Ayat 95 and Surah 43 Ayat 60. 2. The main characteristics of angels are they do not disdain to worship, i.e., they have the state of utmost humility and submissiveness. They do not tire of zikru ibadat, and they continue to do the tasbih of God day and night and are not lazy. In addition to spiritual angels, it is also possible to find these qualities in the physical angels. Surah 21, Ayat 19 and 20. Further, another characteristic of the angels is obedience and fear of God. Surah 16, Ayat 50. 3. One special characteristic of great angels is knowledge and recognition. It is because of this that they have attained the rank of the bearers of the throne. For the supreme throne of the Lord of honor is only of intellect and wisdom and knowledge and recognition. Thus those angels who bear the throne say, O Lord, your mercy and knowledge encompass all things. Surah 40, Ayat 7. This means that the bearers of the throne, in the light of knowledge and recognition, personally observe this reality that nothing in the exterior and interior is beyond the compass of mercy and knowledge. This shows the superiority and eminence of these great angels in knowledge that with a single glance they are able to see all things in both the worlds. 4. It is a fact that by the bearers of the throne are meant the Holy Prophet and after him his legatees, i.e. the pure Imams. For further details on the subject of throne, see the translations, footnotes and the ecstasies of the Quran according to the Shia. Question 80. Walayat of Ali alayhi salam. Why is the walayat of Ali alayhi salam obligatory on a mu'min? Is there any proof for it in the Quran and tradition? Answer. 1. The importance and necessity of Maulana Ali alayhi salam walayat is because of the fact that his walayat is that of God and the Messenger, because by God's command he is wali-e-amr, the one entrusted with divine authority after the Prophet. 2. Since Hazrat Ali alayhi salam is the true successor to the Prophet and the true Imam, therefore his walayat, love and friendship and obedience are obligatory. 3. It is said in the wise Quran, O Prophet, say to these people, if you love God, follow me. God will love you and forgive you your sins. Surah 3, Ayah 31. According to this verse, God's obedience and love are not possible directly, but only indirectly. That is, they are possible through the mediation of the Prophet. If that is the case, then how can there be any doubt that in the same way the Prophet's obedience and love are possible through Ali's alayhi salam mediation? 4. God, may he be exalted, says, indeed your guardian is Ali, and his messenger, and those who believe, who establish prayers, and pay zakat, religious texts, while they are bowing down in prayers. Surah 5, Ayat 55. In this verse, the 3 stages of walayat are mentioned in one place, with the purpose that in fact those 3 stages are one. That is, the walayat of God is through the Prophet, and that of the Prophet is through Ali alayhi salam, as obedience is in 3 stages: obedience to God, obedience to the Prophet, and obedience to the Ulil Amr. Surah 4, Ayat 59. But these 3 obediences are in reality one. 5. The authentic tradition is well known that this verse was revealed about Imam Ali alayhi salam, for it was he who gave zakat to a beggar in the state of ruku, bowing in prayers. In this respect, see the books pertaining to this subject. Now, if someone asks if the above mentioned was about Hazrat Ali alayhi salam after the mention of God and the Prophet's walayat, why not mention the walayat of one person? Why mention persons in the plural? That is, if the walayat was in regard to Imam Ali alayhi salam, why is it not mentioned in the singular form? The answer to this question is that those who are taught the walayat in this verse are general Muslims and mu'mins, but those whose walayat is obligatory after that of God and the messengers are selected and distinguished from the rest of the Muslims and mu'mins. Thus, from this Quranic teaching on the one hand, we know that the walayat of those which is mentioned here is not the ordinary love and friendship which one Muslim should have for another. On the other hand, we come to know that on the perfect level of faith, there are certain chosen people whose walayat is obligatory on all the people of Islam. The second answer is that in the state of ruku, none except Ali alayhi salam from among the companions of the Prophet has given zakat to a beggar. This is a wisdom-filled coincidence. Thus, it is established that this verse is about Hazrat Ali alayhi salam and his walayat after that of the Prophet, which is universally accepted. In fact, it is not only this one verse which mentions Ali alayhi salam being wali rather there are numerous other verses and traditions regarding this. Therefore here, the question should be framed in this way. What is the wisdom in mentioning Hazrat Ali alayhi salam as a group and not as a single individual? The answer may be given as follows. It is a special miracle of Quranic wisdom that in an appropriate place, many people are mentioned in the mention of one individual. Thus God in his profound wisdom included in Hazrat Ali's alayhi salam action, the actions of all true Imams in his progeny, may peace be upon them, so that it may be evident to wise people that all pure Imams are united like one single soul, not only in the rank of walayat, but also in the function of guidance. So this is the reason that Imam Ali's alayhi salam attributes are mentioned in the plural of form. It is mentioned in the Quran, verily, Abraham was a nation, ummat, obedient to Allah, upright, and he was not of the polytheists. Surah 16, Ayat 120. So here too is the same reality. The action of Ibrahim alayhi salam is regarded as the action of all the prophets and imams from his progeny, for he was the progenitor, and his status and rank had to continue in their succession till the resurrection as mentioned in the Quran, Surah 4, Ayat 54. Let us have a look at a common example of how the Quran considers infidels, both of the past and the present, as one community, as if the way of their disbelief and disobedience is the same, such as, say unto them, O Prophet, why then slew you the prophets of Allah in previous times, if you are indeed believers? Surah 2, Ayat 91. It is obvious that those who slew the prophets of God in previous times did not exist during the time of the Prophet, because they had long since passed away from this world. However, in Prophet Muhammad's sallallahu alaihi wasallam's time, there were people who thought like them and continued their ideology. Therefore, God considering the past and the present infidels as one community and said, "Why did you slay the prophets?" After these Quranic proofs, attention is drawn to the prophetic traditions regarding the walayat of Ali alayhi salam and his progeny. There are numerous traditions which establish the walayat of Ali alayhi salam. However, in connection with 100 questions, as we do not like to prolong one answer, it will suffice to quote only one important tradition, which is, "I am from Ali alayhi salam and Ali alayhi salam is from me." If we try to understand this tradition in the light of reason and wisdom, we will come to know the vivid fact that this tradition has great spiritual comprehensiveness. That is, Ali's alayhi salam being from the Prophet means that Ali alayhi salam received all the treasures of intellect and understanding, knowledge, wisdom, rectitude and guidance from the Prophet, and the Prophets being from Ali alayhi salam means that the holy light of the Prophet was transferred into Mawla Ali alayhi salam, and thenceforth it continues living and shining in the succession of imamat of the progeny of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the children of Ali alayhi salam. Question 81. Spacelessness. La makan. Where is spacelessness? What is it, and what are its quality and reality? Please explain in detail. Answer. The first part of your question is incorrect, because spacelessness means there is no space, and if there is no space, the question of where is inapplicable. It is in a non-spatial state. It is spaceless in the sense that its attributes are contrary to space. That is, its attributes are spiritual. With respect to the rest of the question, what is it and what are its quality and reality? It should be known that just as matter and body are in space, in fact they themselves are space, similarly non-matter, i.e., the spirit and its concept are spaceless or non-spatial. Thus, the spiritual world is spaceless or non-spatial, which can be observed not only after that, but even in this life. Just as space cannot be separate from body, rather they are one and the same thing, time is also not separate from the body, rather it is produced by the rotation of the body. Therefore, when this universe will be extinct, not only the body, but time and space will also be extinct. This shows that time and space are linked to the body. Thus, as the soul is spaceless, it is also timeless. In order to understand the reality of La Makan or spacelessness, an easily intelligible example is that of the world of dreams. When a person sees a dream, he does not go anywhere. He is only in a non-spatial state. He turns to his soul, which itself is non-spatial. Therefore, whatever he experiences in that non-spatial state is found without matter. This shows that the things in the spiritual world, namely the real non-spatial world, are not like material things in this world. There is found their essence, i.e., their spiritual forms, just as in a dream of everything leaves its body and appears in its spiritual form. By the real non-spatial world, Asli La Makan is meant the all-embracing spirit which is called the universal soul. The same is the spiritual world and the world of hereafter. In this world, all things are of a spiritual nature. Paradise is also in it. It is living and knowing. We have said earlier that as the soul is non-spatial, so also it is non-temporal. This means that everything of the world is beyond the confines of time. There is neither past nor future. The state or quality of time is like that of the present. Therefore it should be said that there is immovable time which is called
Dahar.
Question 84. Asas and Samid. What is the meaning of Asas and Samid? How many have there been? Please explain. Asas literally means foundation, and according to Ismaili terminology, he is the Imam who becomes the legatee to a Natik, a speaking prophet, and successor to him. From Asas starts a new cycle of Imamat. The same Asas is also called Samid, silent, in relation to the Natik, prophet, when he himself interprets the book and the Sharia law. However, with respect to the silent book, i.e. the Quran, the same Samid, Asas, later on becomes the speaking book, Kitab-e-Natik. There have been 6 Asasis who are as under. The first Asas of Hazrat Adam alayhi salam was Maulana Habil alayhi salam, but when Qabil martyred him, Maulana Sheet alayhi salam was appointed. Hazrat Nuh alayhi salam's Asas was Maulana Sam alayhi salam. Hazrat Ibrahim's alayhi salam Asas was Maulana Ismail alayhi salam. Hazrat Musa's alayhi salam first Asas was Maulana Harun alayhi salam, and when he expired in his time, he was appointed by Maulana Yusuf bin Nun alayhi salam. Hazrat Isa's Asas was Maulana Shamun alayhi salam, and Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu wa alihi wasallam's Asas was Maulana Ali alayhi salam. These are the 6 Asasis of the 6 Natiks. Question 83. Hazrat Imran alayhi salam. Since there are many Imrans, who is the one, the choice of whose progeny is mentioned in the Holy Quran? Please explain in detail. Answer. Your question is related to the verse of Istafa, choice, which is, indeed God has chosen Adam and Noah, and the progeny of Ibrahim, and the progeny of Imran, above all his creatures. Surah 3, Ayah 33. Your question is a good and important one. It is true that there are many Imrans, and there is a difference of opinion in determining the one mentioned in the Quran, such as 1. Imran, the father of Hazrat Musa alayhi salam. 2. Imran bin Mahtan, who was the 6th Imam in the cycle of Hazrat Musa alayhi salam. 3. Imran, the father of Mary. 4. Imran Hashim, the son of Abdul Manaf. And 5. Imran, i.e. Hazrat Abu Talib alayhi salam. Since in this verse the choice of the succession of the guidance of the prophets and imams is mentioned, it is obvious that the need for guidance remains until the resurrection. Therefore, dividing the entire period into 4 parts, it is said that this world and the time never remained nor will remain devoid of divine guidance. Thus, first of all, God chose Adam alayhi salam and his successors from his progeny to guide the people in their own cycle. Then Noah alayhi salam and his successors, then Abraham alayhi salam, and then his progeny, and then finally Hazrat Imran alayhi salam, i.e. Abu Talib and his progeny, so that the world may not remain devoid of the grace of guidance, and this succession of the guidance may continue till resurrection. Contrary to this, if we hold that the Imran mentioned in this verse is the father of Musa alayhi salam, or the maternal grandfather of Isa, then it does not fit the context for 2 reasons. One reason is that the succession of the choice of guidance and its story would have been separated long before from the holy family of the Prophet and ended, whereas the last of these 4 chosen personalities has to be from the family of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The other reason that it is clear from this divine program of the work of guidance that the entire cycle is divided into 4 parts. Similarly, the succession of guidance in this period, which continues until resurrection, is also divided into 4 parts, and at the beginning of each part, a great personality is referred to. Then how is it possible that the 4th and the last part of the succession of guidance be confined to the prophets of the children of Israel, and no mention of the family of the Holy Prophet be made in this comprehensive verse? If somebody says that the honorable mention of the selection of the Holy Prophet and his pure family is already included in the progeny of Abraham alayhi salam, I would say that if this is your decisive proof, then no Imran from among the children of Israel can be the Imran whose choice is mentioned in this verse, for they are also included in the progeny of Abraham alayhi salam. It is obvious that the objector's question is not correct. There is not the slightest doubt that the Holy Prophet and his progeny are included in the progeny of Abraham alayhi salam, but here it is selection upon selection. Now it is appropriate to say something about the augustness and eminence of Hazrati Abu Talib alayhi salam. It should be understood that according to Ismailism, the manifestation of the light of Imamat is in various ranks according to the needs and requirements of the time and place, such as Imam-e-Mukim, the resurrector Imam, Imam-e-Asas, the foundation Imam, Imam-e-Muttim, the Imam who completes a cycle, Imam-e-Mustaqar, the permanent Imam, and Imam-e-Mustawda, the entrusted Imam. The greatest among these ranks is that of Imam-e-Mukim. For details you can see Al-Imamatul fil Islam by Arif Ta'mir, and also Kanzul Walad by Ibrahim bin Hussein al-Hamadi, where he writes that Imam-e-Mukim in the time of Adam alayhi salam was Maulana Hunayd alayhi salam. In the time of Nuh, Maulana Hud alayhi salam. In the time of Abraham alayhi salam, Maulana Salih alayhi salam. In the time of Musa, Maulana Ud. In the time of Isa, Maulana Kuzaima alayhi salam. And in the time of Holy Prophet, he was Maulana Imran alayhi salam, i.e. Abu Talib alayhi salam. Each of them in his cycle prepared a speaking prophet by adorning him with spiritual teachings. So therefore, one should reflect on the meaning of Imam-e-Mukim. Question 84. The Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salam. It is said that Hazrat Sulaiman alayhi salam was given a miraculous ring by which he used to rule over men, jinns, beasts and birds, and his throne was flying in the air. How far are such statements correct? Answer. 1. All these sayings are true, but in the esoteric, ta'wili sense. The esoteric sense of ring is Ism-e Azam, which was given not only to Hazrat Sulaiman alayhi salam, but also to every prophet and imam. His rule over men and jinns, etc., and the flying of his throne in the air was in spirituality, not in the external world. The spirituality of all prophets and imams is full of such wonders and marvels. True. The Quranic verse, Surah 2, Ayat 285 alludes that there is no difference in the spirituality of the great prophets and imams. Their spirituality is common. Had it not been so, they would have been unaware of each other's status, and ma'rifat would have been portioned into parts, and nobody's ma'rifat and spirituality would have been perfect. 3. Prophets and imams are the kings of spirituality, and no wise person can doubt their perfect and complete spirituality. Here we will mention only the spirituality of a real mu'min, who is neither a prophet nor an imam, but only a traveler along the straight path. This mu'min has attained perfect marifat, as it is also dedicated to mu'mins after the prophets and imams. Now assess for yourself what is the meaning of the perfect and complete marifat of this mu'min. Ma'rifat means recognition, and recognition is the result of observation. Again, the question is, what is the domain of the ma'rifat of that arif, and which ma'rifat is included and which is left out of this domain? It is obvious that if this ma'rifat is perfect, then no ma'rifat is left out of it. 4. This explanation indicates that the spirituality of the prophets and imams is nowhere else but on Sirati Mustaqim. Therefore, those mu'mins who follow them perfectly can see with the eye of their heart all those spiritual events which are related to their status. This is the meaning of perfect ma'rifat. This principle should be kept in mind, that spirituality in its comprehensiveness is in reality only one. However, as wisdom requires, in order to make the same miracles of the prophets prominent, different explanations are given. Owing to that, apparently, it seems that they have had separate and different miracles, such as it was only Adam alayhi salam to whom the angels prostrated. The ark belonged only to Noah alayhi salam. The fire was turned into a garden only for Abraham alayhi salam. The miraculous rod was given only to Musa alayhi salam. None could raise the dead except Isa alayhi salam, and Mi'raj belonged only to the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whereas it is not so. Spirituality, in fact, is a common thing, and all miracles in reality are one, but their interpretations are different. Question 85. Scriptures. What are the literal and esoteric meanings of these scriptures? Suhuf, Tawrat, Zabur, and Injil. Answer. 1. Suhuf is the plural of Sahifa, and its primary meanings are found in these words. As-Sahif, the surface of the earth. As-Sahifa, anything extended. Sahifatul Wajh, spread of the face. As-Safa, an extended wide bowl. It is because of this spaciousness and expansion that Sahifa's secondary meaning is a written thing, i.e., paper, leaf, page, and thus Suhuf means written pages, leaves. The ta'wil of Suhuf with respect to an extended thing and written pages is Kalimati Ta'ma, the perfect words of the spirit and spirituality, each of which is a great and pure spiritual leaf, whose expansion of the meaning and ta'wil is very great. 2. Tawrat. There are two versions of the literal meaning of Tawrat. According to one, it is the plural of the Arabicized form Torah, which is in Hebrew means law and commandment. Thus, Tawrat means commandments and laws. According to the other version, it is derived from wari, which means both hiding and appearing, as the words show, until the sun was hidden in the veil. Surah 38, Ayat 32. Yawari, he hides. Surah 5, Ayat 31. An-nara allati turuna, the fire which you kindle. Surah 56, Ayat 71. Fal-muriyati kadhan, and strike sparks of fire. Surah 100, Ayat 2. When the Prophet wanted to go on a Ghazwa, military expedition, he was using Tawriya. Tawriya means wishing something and pretending something else in such a way that it is not a lie. Warazand, the fire came out of the flint. From the above examples, it is clear that Tawrat means both external and internal. That is, the scripture revealed to Musa alayhi salam was not only in an external form, but also in an internal form. And that aspect which was internal and spiritual contained guidance and light, as God says, "Verily we did reveal the Torah, wherein is guidance and light." Surah 5, Ayat 44. 3. Zabur means a book, as is clear from these examples such as Az-Zabr, to write, Mizbar, pen, writing, read, Zabir, writing, Zibr, plural of Zubur, book, intellect, Zubur, plural of Zubur, Mazbur, anything written, book. According to some, Zabur among the scriptures means that book whose comprehension is difficult. Some others say it means the book which contains only intellectual wisdoms and not the legal commandments, and Al-Kitab means the one which contains both commandments and wisdom. The proof of this is that the Zabur of Dawood alayhi salam does not contain any commandment of law. This shows that Zabur is the scripture whose comprehension is difficult, for in it are emphasized intellectual wisdoms. Its most fundamental wisdom is that in it are hidden the great secret of self, Khudi, and Godhead, Khudai. God, may he be exalted by his perfect power, used Dawood or David alayhi salam's heart and mind under the influence of spiritual and luminous powers and caused it to be expressed by his tongue and called it a heavenly book. In this work are hidden many secrets of Ma'rifat. Regarding this reality, the Quran says, "Those of the children of Israel who went astray were cursed by the tongue of David and of Jesus, the son of Mary. That was because they rebelled and used to transgress." Surah 5, Ayat 78. This divine command reveals various wisdoms. First of all, it reveals that David alayhi salam was the speaking tongue of God in his own time. Thus, for such a tongue of God, it is not appropriate that it should be appointed only to curse the disobedient ones. Rather, on the other side, his mercy to the obedient ones should also come through him. Indeed, the true guide who holds the great rank of Lisanullah, i.e. the tongue of God, is certainly in such a position. Thus, it is obvious that Zabur was caused to be spoken through the tongue of David alayhi salam. 4. Injil. According to some lexicographers, Injil is the Arabicized form of the Greek word Evangelion, meaning good news, gospel. According to some others, it is derived from the Arabic root of Najala. Najala has various meanings, but according to some, it is in the sense of Najaltu shay, i.e., I revealed the thing. According to this, it also gives the same meaning of Tawrat, that is, the heavenly book has an exoteric and esoteric aspect, as the Quran says, and he has completed his favors, both apparent and hidden, upon you. Surah 31, Ayah 20. Thus, as long as the Injil as a heavenly book was in its original form without any alteration and distortion, no faithful person can doubt its having divine favors in its exoteric and esoteric aspects, as the greatest favors of God are certainly in the form of knowledge and wisdom. It is also said, "And O Mary, God will teach him the book and the wisdom, and the Torah and the Gospel." Surah 3, Ayat 48. Here it is clear that Jesus alayhi salam received all those teachings from God only exoterically and spiritually, because he used to receive the aid of the Holy Spirit through spirituality. Question 86. Didar, vision of Imam. Why is the physical didar of the Imam of the time so important in the Ismaili faith? What is the reward in it? Answer. 1. Since the true Prophet is the vicegerent of God, and the Imam of the time is the vicegerent of the Prophet, hence the didar of the Imam is the didar of the Prophet, and the didar of the Prophet is the didar of God. 2. Those whose obedience is God's obedience, their didar also represents God's didar. Study the subject of command and obedience carefully in the Quran. 3. Sayyidina Qazi Nu'man in his book Al-Himma fil Adabi Atba'i al-Imama on page 46 quotes this tradition. To look at the face of the Imam is worship, and to look at the Quran is worship. It is clear that to look at the Imam and the Quran with love and devotion is worship. 4. According to the Quran, on the day of resurrection, mu'mins will have the didar of God. The question then arises, how will this didar take place, while God as such is incomparable and invisible? The answer is that this glorious didar will be in the form of the Prophet or the Imam. For the form of the perfect man is considered to be the form of God. Surah Ar-Rahman 5. It is well known that Adam alayhi salam, who was the perfect man of his time, was created in God's image. This means that Adam alayhi salam's form and that of the previous perfect man were given the status of God's form. It does not mean that God had any specific form like a human being, according to which Adam alayhi salam was created. 6. According to the Quran, God breathed his spirit into Adam alayhi salam. This does not mean that at all that God has a spirit of his own, for he is above and free from everything. This rather means that the spirit of the Prophet or the Imam before Adam alayhi salam as God's vicegerent was considered as the spirit of God and was breathed into Adam alayhi salam. 7. Jesus Christ alayhi salam is regarded as the spirit of God, Ruhullah, but it is necessary to know that every prophet and every Imam is also the spirit of God. Similarly, every prophet and every Imam is also God's face, and their didar is God's didar. 8. From the above explanation, it is clear that the physical didar of the mazhar of the divine light, that is, the Imam of the time, is very important in the Ismaili faith, and very great reward lies in it. Therefore, greatly blessed are those who have great yearning and enthusiasm for the physical and spiritual didar of the Imam of the time. Question 87. The Kaaba, the house of God. In what sense is the Kaaba regarded as the house of God, while it is a material building, and God is above and free from space and spacelessness? What is the ta'wil of turning of the face towards the Qibla, i.e. the direction of the Kaaba? Answer. The Kaaba is the house of God, in the sense that in the Quran God himself has said about it, my house, Surah 2, Ayat 125, Surah 24, Ayat 26. Therefore there is no doubt in its being the house of God. Certainly God as such is above and free from space and spacelessness. However, the wisdoms of God's recognition, which are hidden in the example of the house of God, are so great and lofty that in knowing them a mu'min finds God. To know these secrets of God's recognition is to truly enter the house of God. Therefore, in this sense, this holy place is the house of God. The greatest secret, the main symbol, and the fundamental beauty of the Kaaba is that it is the symbol of God's real and prosperous house, which is living and is the fountainhead of knowledge and wisdom, and the center of rectitude and guidance, in which the divine light actually kindles. It is from here that God's recognition and all those things related to God's house are available, such as house of God during the time of the Holy Prophet was the Prophet himself, and after him the Imam of the time in every age. It is said in a sacred tradition, I am not contained by the heaven or by the earth, I am contained only by the heart of a mu'min. This tradition presents two realities to us. Clearly, one is that since the heaven and the earth cannot contain God, then the throne and the Kaaba cannot contain him either. The second is, if a true mu'min's heart can contain him, then first of all, he must necessarily and certainly be contained by the pure and purified heart of the commander of the faithful and the perfect man, i.e., the true Imam. This means that in the true sense, it is the perfect man who is the house of God that contains everything which belongs to God. When the Kaaba in this sense is the ta'wili symbol of the Imam of the time, is it symbolized mamthul, this means that in the Shariat, the house of God is the physical Qibla. In the Haqiqat, the house of God is the spiritual Qibla. Thus, the ta'wil of facing the Kaaba in the matters of Shariat is to face the spiritual Qibla in the matters of Haqiqat. The spiritual Qibla is the Imam of the time, Salawatullahi alayhi. Question 88. The shirt of Yusuf alayhi salam. Please tell us some useful points regarding Hazrat Yusuf's shirt. What was it? Was it really a physical shirt, or was it a garment of paradise? Answer. It should be known that Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam was an Imam Mustawda in his time. As it is clear from the Quranic story, Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam as a child dreamt that the 11 stars, the sun and the moon, were prostrating before him. The ta'wil of this dream is that he was to receive the status of Imamat soon and before the expected time, i.e., in the very lifetime of his esteemed father. For the prostration of the 11 stars means that among the 12 hujjats, one was himself. Therefore, the remaining 11 obeyed him, that is, he excelled all of them in rank. The prostration of the sun means that the previous Imam, giving the light of Imamat to his son, accepted his son's authority, and finally the prostration of the moon means that the Bab, gate or Hujjat-e-Azam, the supreme Hujjat, followed him. This is the ta'wil related to the prostration of the 11 stars, the sun, the moon, to Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam. It should be remembered that the shirt of Yusuf means the subtle body, Jism Latif. We have mentioned the subtle body everywhere in our writings. The subtle body, in fact, belongs only to the Imam of the time. It is the center of all physical and spiritual miracles. It consists of innumerable small luminous atoms or particles, each of which is a living and speaking soul. This miraculous shirt, if it wants, can appear in the form of a perfect man, otherwise it mostly remains scattered in the form of atoms. The subtle body has many names, and one of them is Tusai Ibdaiya. Tusai means body, and Ibdai means an instantaneous creation, which does not take any time as in temporal creation, takhliq. For it is the place of kun fayakun, be and it is. Ibda takes place only by amr, command. Thus the subtle body is the Ibdai body full of every kind of miraculous capability, i.e., it is full of capacities for all kinds of miracles. From the language of the Quranic wisdom, it is evident that Hazrat Yaqub alayhi salam used to weep for a long time for the luminous didar of the Imam of the time, and thereby his eyes had turned white. The ta'wil of this is that for a long time there was only white light without didar. But when the shirt of Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam was laid upon his face, he regained his sight. The ta'wil of this is that when the luminous or subtle body of the Imam of the time appeared before him, he did his didar. If we take this story and the tradition for granted without this ta'wili wisdom, it would mean that, God forbid, even the prophets and the Imams, like ordinary people, lose their eyesight, weeping for the physical separation of their children. If this is true, how can it be possible for them to guide and lead human beings? This shows that the real fact is hidden in the ta'wil, which we have explained above. Manners of dua. Question 89. Would you kindly explain the different gestures during the recitation of dua? Answer. During the recitation of the dua, the way we raise the hands with open palms is a sign of the expression of our dependence and indigence in the presence of God. To prostrate at the end of each part of the dua implies that the faithful servant is very humble. It also means that he is created from dust, and physically he is going to go back to dust. It also means that in the Prophet's time it was obligatory to obey the Prophet, whereas in the Imam's time it is obligatory to obey the Imam of the time, because the ta'wil of prostration is obedience to the Prophet and to the Imam in their respective times. See Wajidin, Discourse 19. When the holy dua is completed with all its parts, before the last prostration, the hands are clasped while saying Shah Didar. The ta'wil of this is that the didar of the Imam of the time, which is the mazhar of the divine didar, and which is done with the companions on both right and left sides, is that the concept of the holy didar of the king of religion existed in the time of prophethood and is also in the time of imamat, for the ta'wil of the right is the prophet and that of the left is the imam. Also, in saying Shah Didar to both sides, it is said in the language of wisdom that you should accept and attain both the physical and spiritual Didar of the king of religion. The ta'wil of the right is the batin, esoteric aspect, which is the rank of the Prophet, and the ta'wil of the left is the zahir, exoteric aspect, which is the rank of the Imam. After this, while reciting Kalima-yi Shahadat, the mu'min indicates that may both afaq, the physical world, and anfus, the spiritual world, remain witness that he testifies to the divinity of God. May he be exalted, the prophethood and the messengership of Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the walayat and imamah of Hazrat Ali alayhi salam. For to touch the earth in this manner means to call to witness the physical world, and to touch the face means to call to witness the spiritual world, as it is alluded in the Quran in Surah 18, Ayat 51. Also, another ta'wil of this is that the mu'min coming to this world bore witness to God, the Prophet, and the true Imam. Then acted accordingly. He sought the favors and blessings of both religion and the world, because touching the earth means to come to this world, and passing the hand over the face means to seek favors and blessings. Finally, Hayyuzinda and Qayyum Payinda are recited to the right and left sides. The supreme wisdom in this action is about the two supreme names of God, Al-Hayy, ever-living, and Al-Qayyum, everlasting, mentioned in the Quran in Surah 2, Ayat 255, in which, in the language of wisdom, it is said that God's supreme name, Al-Hayy, is alive, present and living, in this world, and his supreme name Al-Qayyum is also everlasting in this world. And these two wisdom-filled indications are to the Imam of the time. Question 90. Hunza-i Ginan. Here we recite the Ginans of the Pirs, but I want to know in what language Ginans are recited in Hunza. Are the Ginans there recited in the language of Hunza? Answer. Previously, all the Ginans, Manqabat, praise of the Prophet and the Imams, Qasida, eulogy of the Prophet and the Imams, etc., used to be recited in Persian, but nowadays they are mostly recited in the Hunza language. This practice continues not only in Hunza, but also in those places of Gilgit where Ismailis from Hunza have settled. It has remained a wonderful and successful tradition among the Jama'ats affiliated to the Ismaili Dawah of the ancient India to recite only the poetry of Pirs as Ginans. In the countries where the Dawah of Pir Nasi Kisrau, may God sanctify his secret, has flourished, such a distinction or preference does not exist. Rather, any fine and intelligible poetry in the glorification of the Imam and religion is recited as Manqabat and Ginan in the Jama'at Khana. I am fully convinced that both these above-mentioned traditions are approved and accepted in the eyes of the true Imam, and numerous wisdoms are hidden in them, the explanation of which beyond the scope of this question. Question 91. Concept of Imamat. Would you kindly explain the concept of Imamat and the role of the Imam from the Ismaili point of view? Please also explain what is meant generally to be an Ismaili. Answer. It is apparent that three questions are being asked here. However, their basis is the same. So it should be known that in Islam, Imamat is another name of the Khilafati Ilahiyya, the divine vicegerency. Therefore, the concept of Imamat is the concept of Khilafat, which is mentioned prominently in the Quran. Thus, the very Khilafat of Hazrati Adam alayhi salam was Imamat, for the technical sense of these two terms is the same, and so is their aim and object. That is, in reality, only the one who is the vicegerent of God, Khalifa, is able to be the leader and guide, Imam of the people. Hazrati Adam alayhi salam in his time was the vicegerent, Khalifa of God, and the guide, Imam of the people, and both these terms have the same sense. Similarly, Hazrati Ibrahim alayhi salam in his time was the guide, Imam of the people, and the vicegerent of God. Do you not see in the Quran that Adam alayhi salam is called Khalifa and Ibrahim alayhi salam Imam? This signifies that as in Ibrahim alayhi salam, the vicegerency, Khilafat of God, and the guidance, Imamat of the people is the same. Similarly, they, i.e., Khilafat and Imamat, are the same in Adam alayhi salam. If in the eyes of God, Adam alayhi salam and Noah alayhi salam were not the guide, Imam of the people in their time, then God, as is mentioned in the Quran, Surah 3, Ayah 33, would not have chosen them. It should be understood that the one whom God chooses from among the people becomes the guide, Imam of the people. For the guide means leader, and in reality, the leader is the one who must be chosen on the basis of his qualifications, such as the breathing of the divine spirit into him, Surah 15, Ayah 29, and granting him divine knowledge, Surah 2, Ayah 31. Do you think that when we generally consider the Imam as the vicegerent of the Prophet, and Imamat as the vicegerent of the Prophet, then according to the same logic, if the Imam is the vicegerent of the Prophet, and the Prophet is the vicegerent of God, then the Imam, through the mediation of the Prophet, became the vicegerent of God and imamat the vicegerency of God. Thus, it is a reality that the concept of imamat is the concept of divine vicegerency. The objection which the angels had raised in predicting mischief and bloodshed was an indication of the battle and conflict between right and wrong, i.e., the vicegerent of God and his opponent, which had to be continued till the resurrection. It is obvious that behind the veil of this objection it is said in the language of wisdom that the rank of the Khilafat and Imamat of Adam alayhi salam will continue and last in this world till the resurrection. Thus, in connection with the question of Khilafat and Imamat, the first event of mischief and bloodshed took place during the time of Adam alayhi salam himself. In this connection, you should read the story of Habil and Qabil in Surah 5, ayat 27 to 32 in the Quran. In this battle between right and wrong, Imam Habil was on the right and Qabil was wrong. Qabil martyred Hazrat Habil alayhi salam. However, despite all that, the right won the battle and the wrong met with defeat. That is, right, haq, means that light which was in Imam Habil alayhi salam transferred to Imam Sheed alayhi salam and continued to live and survive forever. And Qabil, who was the embodiment of darkness, could not seize the holy light of Imam Habil alayhi salam, nor could he extinguish it. Rather, he was driven out from the divine court and become accursed. Now we will try to explain the role of the exalted Imam briefly. The Imam has different ranks according to the time and changing conditions of the world, such as Imam-e-Mukim, Imam-e-Asas, Imam-e-Muttim, Imam-e-Mustaqar, and Imam-e-Mustawda. And thus in each of these ranks, his role differs apparently, the details of which are beyond the scope of this answer. In short, if it is the cycle of prophethood, sometimes the Imam also has a rank of prophethood in his lineage. But in the cycle of Imamat, i.e., after the seal of the prophets, it is not so. His rank is only the vicegerent of the prophet. However, whether directly or through the prophet, as mentioned above, the Imam holds the great rank of the vicegerent of God. That is, the Imam as the Sahib-e-Amr, the owner of divine command or authority, continues to be the plenipotentiary and the guardian in the exoteric and esoteric guidance of religious matters. As for the answer to the last part of the question, what does it mean to be an Ismaili in a general sense, is that an Ismaili is such a Muslim and a Mu'min who acts upon the Quran and Islam according to the commands of God, the Prophet and the Ulil Amr, i.e. the pure Imams. Surah 4, ayat 59. The Mu'min is convinced that the vicegerent of the Prophet, i.e. the Imam of the time, who is the light of guidance, is always present and existent in this world, and without his blessed existence, the affairs of religion cannot be managed. Surah 57, ayat 28. The Mu'min absolutely believes that the position of the Imam of the time is not only as the light, Surah 5, ayat 15, and the teacher, Mu'allim, of the Quran, Surah 2, ayat 150 and 151, but is also the speaking Quran, Surah 45, ayat 29. Question 92. Some symbols. What is the ta'wil of these things? A. To do shadida. B. To pass the hand over the face after touching the ground with it. C. To say hayyu zinda and qayyum payinda to the right and left sides. D. To burn an aloe stick. E. to keep a candle kindled? Answer. The ta'wil of parts A, B and C of your question have been explained in the answer to question number 89. Therefore here we will try to explain only the ta'wil of the burning an aloe stick and kindling a candle. The physical purpose of burning an aloe stick is that the environment of the jama'at and the spiritual assembly should be made pleasant from its fragrance, and the atmosphere of the house of God, which may have been disturbed and be displeasing, should be turned into a pure, desirable and pleasant atmosphere. Its ta'wili wisdom is that the faithful servant should sacrifice his financial, physical and mental powers and provide ease and happiness for others, just as the aloe stick sacrifices its existence and refreshes and mellows the heart and mind of the people in the assembly. Fragrance is a nice, useful and pleasant thing, which everybody likes. Most importantly, the Holy Prophet himself used to like it very much, because it implies sublime illusions of wisdom in addition to having physical comfort and pleasure. One of them is that although the substance of fragrance is not much, nonetheless it pleases many people. Similarly, a little good word and good deed of a mu'min pleases many people, and their fragrance spreads and remains all over the world and never comes to an end. Excellent work, progress and service, whether it is from the jama'at or from an individual members of the jama'at, are like the fragrances of a garden, and those who spread its fame are like the breeze, which carries and spreads them to the surroundings and perfumes the minds of those living there. How many people can benefit from that little sacrifice of the insignificant aloe stick? The aloe stick becomes fana, annihilated, by burning down gradually, but the feeling and effect of its fragrance remains in many minds. The lesson of wisdom contained in this is that the annihilation, fana, of things does not mean that they absolutely become extinct and naught. Rather, it means that in the process of fana or annihilation, things change from one state to another state. Similarly, illusions are also found in the burning and transforming of a candle into light. One of them is that just as only a few things can give fragrance or light in burning, in the same way it is only the true mu'mins whose sacrifice can prove to be acceptable and useful religiously and spiritually. And it is only such mu'mins who can annihilate their egos and transform them into luminosity, just as the candle annihilates and transforms itself into light. Question 93. 7 heavens and 7 earths. What are the meanings of 7 heavens and 7 earths? Answer. Your question is related to Surah 65, Ayah 12 in the Quran. It should be known that according to new research in spiritual and physical science, the sun is situated in the very center of the great globe of this universe, and surrounding it are fixed 14 hypothetical circles, which are larger and larger towards the outside and smaller towards the inside, like the layers of an onion. Among these, the outer 7 circles are regarded as heavens, and the inner 7 circles as earths, and these should be termed universal heavens and universal earths. The other heavens and earths are stellar, that is, all the planets and stars which are in the universe are divided into 14 categories with respect to matter, body, soul, and evolution of life. Among these categories, the highest 7 are heavens and the lowest 7 are earths. In addition, the 7 natiks are the 7 heavens, and their 7 asasis are the 7 earths of spirituality. For the details of these meanings, see the books on Ta'wil. From another aspect, 7 Imams and their 7 Hujjats are the 7 heavens and the 7 earths of spirituality. Furthermore, there are 14 stages of individual spirituality, among which the 7 beginning ones are like the 7 earths, and the 7 later stages are like the 7 heavens. Question 94. Faith of Ali alayhi salam. In some books it is written that Hazrat Ali accepted the faith of Islam. What does this mean? Does this mean, God forbid, that in the beginning he was a non-Muslim? If so, does this mean that a prophet or an imam can be a non-Muslim in the beginning? Answer. Your question is very important and very useful, because in answering it, the fundamental points of faith, the rank of prophethood and the rank of imamat, can be discussed. Thus, it should be understood that there are different forms of accepting faith, such as the acceptance of faith by an infidel, owing to fear or urge for worldly advantage, or through understanding the truth, or the acceptance of faith by someone who was already faithful, mu'min. In other words, the states and degrees of those who accept faith, iman, are not alike, for faith has various meanings, such as to believe, to confess, and to confirm, etc. God says in the Quran, when Allah made his covenant with the prophets, he said, "Behold that which I have given you of the book and wisdom, and afterward there will come unto you a messenger, confirming that which you possess. You shall believe in him, and you shall help him." He said, "Do you agree? And will you take up my burden which I lay upon you in this matter?" They answered, "We agree." He said, "Then bear your witness. I will be a witness with you." Surah 3, Ayat 81. It is clear from this Quranic teaching that according to the command of God, all the prophets believe in one another, but this never means that they in their own time or in their own right are not faithful, and personally they are not able to attain religion and faith. It rather means that every prophet believes in the coming prophet to be true and confirms the previous prophet, so that thereby the da'wat of the prophet may be straightened and the people may have proper guidance. For the ignorant people go astray when one prophet succeeds another prophet. There is an excellent example of the compliance of the above-mentioned divine command in the Quran, Surah 61, Ayat 6, in which Jesus Christ, addressing to the children of Israel, says, "O children of Israel, verily I am the messenger of Allah unto you, confirming that which was revealed before me in the Torah, and bring good tidings of a messenger who comes after me, whose name shall be Ahmad, the praised one." Surah 61, Ayat 6. A true Mu'min can understand many realities of the pure Imams in the light of the events and the states of the prophets. Thus, it is a fact that the way Maulana Ali alayhi salam believed in the Holy Prophet was on the highest level of faith. That is, he accepted the Prophet to be true and confirmed his prophethood and messengership. For the lamp of the religion of Abraham alayhi salam was lit in the house of Hazrat Imam Abu Talib alayhi salam. Further, when God, praising his light, says that it is light upon light, that is, one lamp is lit from another, the question arises, which was the nearest lamp with which the lamp of the blessed personality of the Prophet was lit? The only uncontrovertible answer we have is that it was lit by the lamp of Hazrat Abu Talib alayhi salam, who was the Imam Muqim of his time. Study Surah 4, Ayat 136 carefully, in which, even after believing in Islam, God is addressing the Muslims. O you who believe, believe. It is obvious that this belief is not like that of unbelievers, in that it is an affirmation of a negation. Contrary to this, here, to believe means to believe after believing. In this divine command, although the word belief, iman, is the same, the meaning and interpretation cannot be the same. For those people who are yearning to progress in faith are at different stages on the straight path. Thus, the explanation of the command, O you who believe, believe, will not be alike. Rather, it will be according to the different stages of faith. For, with respect to faith, people cannot be alike. Iman continues to increase step by step from the beginning to the end of the straight path, and where ma'rifat reaches its climax. Faith, iman, also does so. In short, the way Hazrat Ali alayhi salam believed in the Holy Prophet was in the light of ma'rifat. He accepted him as the true Prophet and supported him and confirmed his da'wah, just as Hazrat Harun alayhi salam accepted Hazrat Musa and supported and confirmed his prophethood and messengership, which we have already discussed. Question 95. Sprinkling water, chanta, on the dead body. A. Is there resurrection after that? B. Do paradise and hell actually exist? C. If, when Mukhi Sahib gives you chanta after you die, all your sins are forgiven, what is the need of doing good deeds during your lifetime? Answer. A. Yes, resurrection after death is a Quranic reality in which every Muslim must believe. B. Yes, they do exist, and he who does not believe in it is an infidel. C. If in some places Mukhi Sahib gives chanta to the dead body, it is a popular belief and an ordinary ritual, not that it is among the fundamentals of religion. Had it been so, there would have been an emphatic command among the commands of God, the Prophet and the pure Imams, but there is no such thing. There is no doubt that even in popular belief and religious rituals, there is some expedience and wisdom. Nonetheless, their benefits are available only to those who are faithful, pious, and righteous. As for the rest, the popular belief and rituals cannot grant them any salvation after that. Chanta is a nice ritual in our faith. However, the pleasant and fruitful effect is more and more useful during the lifetime of a mu'min, not after that. He is not able to awaken from the sleep of negligence by it as he was able to do in his lifetime. However, the only benefit is that when many mu'mins believe and hope that this act of chanta will be beneficial for the deceased mu'min, it turns into a form of prayer for him. Question 96. People of salvation. Is it possible for a non-Ismaili to attain salvation in union with God? If not, why is it the right of salvation granted to a small minority, leaving aside so many people in the world, while the divine law is full of virtues of justice and equity? Answer. In order to facilitate understanding, we will divide this question into three parts. What is the source of salvation in the religion of Islam? As a result of the true da'wah which the prophets preached, did all the people attain salvation or only a minority? What is the reality of divine justice and equity? The answer to the first question is that in the religion of Islam, the means of salvation is the Holy Prophet, and after him his pure Ahl Bayt hold this position. By Ahl Bayt are meant the Imams of guidance, as the Prophet has said, "My Ahl Bayt are like Noah's ark. The one who embarked therein attained salvation, and the one who lagged behind was drowned. Now when the means of salvation after the Prophet are his Ahl Bayt, it is obvious that as a result of obedience, salvation is assigned only to those who recognize the Imam of the time. By Ahl Bayt, as we have seen above, is meant the Imam of the time. For the Prophet's house, which was prosperous with knowledge and wisdom, is now prosperous only due to the ta'wil and guidance of the living and present Imam. For the meanings which the wisdom-filled world Ahl Bayt embraces are that the spiritual and luminous relatives of the Prophet are his representatives, successors and holders of authority, ulil amr, in knowledge and wisdom, and rectitude and guidance, and obedience to them is obligatory after obedience to God and to the Prophet. The answer to the second part of the question, as a result of the true da'wat which the prophets preached, did all the people attain salvation or only a minority? Is that obviously and clearly only a few people have attained salvation, and many people became deprived of the means of salvation because they did not accept the true da'wat, the details of which are mentioned in the Quran. Now, from this it becomes easy to understand the answer to the main question that in every age the people of salvation can be only those who obey the true guide, i.e. the Imam. The answer to the third and the last part of the question, what is the reality of divine justice and equity, is that the divine law is full of the virtues of justice and equity, in the beginning as well as in the end. According to this law, God has never left this world devoid of the light of guidance. In other words, God has neither deprived the world of guidance in the cycle of prophethood nor in the cycle of imamate. Therefore, those who recognized this fountainhead of guidance obtained a place in the ark of guidance, Safina-ye Hidayat, and became the people of salvation. But those who rejected the true guide were deprived of the ark of salvation and were drowned in the deluge of deviation. When it is established that Islam is the religion of nature, whatever happens in it would always be in accordance with the very law of nature. That is, whatever is superior and loftier in this world is fewer in number and quantity, and contrary to this, whatever is inferior and lower is greater in number and quantity, and examples of this can be found on every level in the law of nature. Thus, if you reflect on the composition and order of minerals, vegetables, animals, and man among the creatures, you will come to know how vegetables are formed from minerals, and animals from vegetables, and finally man. If we observe the chain of this physical creation, we will come to know that as we go lower and lower down the chain, things are found in greater and greater quantity, and as we go higher and higher up the chain, they become lesser and lesser in quantity. This implies that if the people of salvation are in a minority in comparison to others, it is not against the law of nature, rather it is exactly in accordance with it. Another example of ascension and evolution in the creatures is that if grass is grown in a field or garden, this does not mean that the entire soil of the earth will be transformed into grass. Similarly, it is also not possible that the quantity of grass that a cow eats will cause milk to be produced in the same quantity. Again, it is far from just for the owner of the cow to take all the milk and leave nothing for the poor calf. Furthermore, not all the milk is turned into cream. It is also obvious that the quantity of butter is less than the cream. Further, it is known to everyone that when butter is transformed into pure oil, it becomes lesser. When something is fried in the oil, still another portion of it burns or evaporates. When man eats the food fried in the oil, very little energy is formed out of it, and from this energy, very little energy can prove to be useful. This is the law of nature, and the same law operates in religion. That is, in religion also, there are stages fixed according to the access of the people to beliefs. Question 97. Woman and Imamat. Why can a woman not be the Imam? Answer. In connection with 100 questions, we have been asked this question twice. Since this question is very interesting and fruitful, therefore we will answer it twice also. And Aziz has asked this question with very strange logic. God knows whether he has asked it deliberately or accidentally. For according to every wise person, there is an ample difference between these two questions. Why can a woman not be the Imam? Which means, why cannot a woman, whether ordinary or from the elite, obtain the Imamat? And why is it always conferred upon men only? This implies that it is impossible for every man to be the Imam, while in comparison to him, all women are deprived of this exalted status, while it is not correct to pose the question in this way. The other question is, why can a daughter of the Imam not be the Imam? Or, in other words, why can a woman from the family of Imamat not obtain Imamat? The question should be posed in this way, for the exalted office of Imamat is not such that everybody can achieve it. Rather, it is in a chosen family, and that is only the Prophet's family. Thus here we will answer the latter question from the two kinds of questions presented above. According to Quranic law, the son inherits 2 portions from his father, and the daughter inherits 1. This shows that man is superior to woman, and therefore only the son of the Imam inherits the throne of Imamat, not the daughter of the Imam. It is also one of the greatest miracles of God in proof of the veracity of the glory of Imamat that in addition to the chapter Kawthar, many other Quranic verses confirm that the son has to be born in the house of the Imams from the progeny of Muhammad sallallahu wa alihi wasallam to inherit the throne of Imamat. Thus, it is absolutely impossible that in the presence of male issue of the true Imam, the Imamat be given to the daughter. The law of Imamat in many matters is like the law of prophethood. Thus, just as no lady among the ladies have become a prophet, no daughter of the Imam can be an Imam. Islam is a religion of nature, and according to the law of nature, the woman in comparison to the man is weak and compelled in many respects, such as her menstrual cycle, pregnancy, maternity, etc. These conditions are such that the scope of the woman's activities becomes very limited, and therefore physically the woman cannot succeed to the office of Imamat. If there is a group of women and there is no man to lead them in Sharia namaz, in such a state according to Shariat, a capable woman should lead them in such a way that she should remain in the front of line, but should not stand in front of them separately, like a male pesh namaz, a man who leads the prayers. The ta'wili allusion of this is that although the daughters of the family of prophethood and imamat cannot succeed to the physical rank of prophethood and imamat, in batin or spiritually, they are linked with the center of the light of guidance. Among men and women, all those who are followers of the Imam are like his daughters, for they receive only one portion of the inheritance of religion. to reach his light spiritually, being his spiritual children only. But the son of the Imam of the time, who is going to inherit the Imamate in his son in every respect, therefore, he receives two portions of the inheritance of the religion. He inherits the light of the Imam externally as well as internally, for he is his son both physically and spiritually. So this is the reason that the Imamat of a woman in Sharia namaz is hidden and confined in the first row and is not prominent like the Imamat of a man standing in front of them. This is an allusion to the spiritual rank of the light of Imamat, which all the followers of the Imam can attain spiritually according to their capacity. It is said in Surah 4, Ayah 34, "Man are rulers of women, because God has made the one of them to excel the other." From this Quranic principle, it is clear that physically it is impossible for a woman to become an Imam, for the Imam has to be the ruler and more excellent, afzal, and not a subject and less excellent, mafzul. Question 98. Marriage of Imam. Is it correct that some people say that the true Imam does not marry Ismaili girls because, being his followers, they are his spiritual daughters, and an Imam should not marry his spiritual daughters? Answer: no, it is absolutely wrong. To believe that it is not lawful for the Imam to marry an Ismaili girl has nothing to do with reality. If someone is interested in understanding this problem in detail, he should see the chapter on marriage in Daimul Islam, the famous book on Ismaili jurisprudence, and also the Sunnat of the Holy Prophet, and the collective conduct of the pure Imams, so that he may have proper knowledge of the fundamental points in this connection. Here, first of all, it is important to know that in Islam there is a scope for marriage and the lawful wife, in which all those categories of women are mentioned from whom a Muslim can choose one for his marriage. Now, from this scope of legitimacy, if somebody chooses a woman for marriage according to his discretion and expediency, how can one think that whoever he chose for marriage was the only one lawful for him? Thus, if the Imam marries a girl from other than an Ismaili family, this wisdom-filled choice is within the scope ordained by the Islamic law mentioned above. God knows how this wrong notion has come about, that the Imam cannot marry a daughter of his followers, for she is a spiritual daughter, despite the fact that such a marriage is never prohibited for a prophet, an Imam, Peer or Murshid. For becoming a follower is a spiritual relationship, whereas marriage is a physical relationship, and there are two different things. Except for the wives of Hazrat Nuh alayhi salam and Hazrat Lut alayhi salam, the rest of the wives of the prophets were pious Muslims, as well as the spiritual daughters of their husbands. The wives of all the Imams are in the same position, and so is the Honorable Begum of the present Imam, our Lord Shah Karim al-Husseini alayhi salam. Further, the marriage that we are discussing here is the physical, and the sense in which Ismaili girls are Imam's daughters belongs to the spirit and spirituality. Then how can physical marriage be unlawful and prohibited with the spiritual daughter, while in the spiritual sense, the wife of the Imam herself automatically becomes his spiritual daughter, and while the wives of all of us are our spiritual sisters? Probably some people have wrongly thought that when the Imam marries a girl from a non-Ismaili family, it is done with the purpose that she will remain non-Ismaili. But this notion is glaringly based on falsehood, for the Imam's Honorable Begum, before or after the marriage, accepts Ismailism and automatically becomes his spiritual daughter. And truly speaking, we should believe in this way about the Honorable Begum Salima Sahiba, for according to Ismailism, she is included in the luminous family of the Imam of the time. The Holy Prophet said to Imam Ali alayhi salam, "O Ali, I and you are the parents of the faithful men and faithful women." This shows that the Prophet's honorable wives were like his spiritual daughters, and Hazrati Fatima alayhi salam with Imam Ali alayhi salam had the same position spiritually. Similarly, the Imam and Bab, i.e. the supreme Hujjat in every age, are the parents of the faithful men and women. This is indeed in a spiritual sense and not in any physical sense. From the above discussion, it becomes vividly clear that when the Imam marries a girl from a non-Ismaili family, it does not mean that he cannot marry a daughter of one of his followers according to Shariat. Rather, in his wisdom-filled act, there are numerous expediencies hidden from the world of Islam and humanity, in addition to his followers, which nobody except the people of wisdom understand. Their explanation, however, is not necessary in this answer. Question 99. Sacrifice. Which son of Hazrati Ibrahim alayhi salam was sacrificed according to the story of Quran? Hazrati Ismail alayhi salam or Hazrati Ishaq alayhi salam? Further, please tell us what is the ta'wil in it. Answer. In the Quran, Surah 37, Ayat 99 to 107, the sacrifice of Hazrati Ismail alayhi salam is mentioned. This is only the exoteric aspect of the story. However, in the ta'wil of the great trial of the sacrifice, both Ismail alayhi salam and Ishaq alayhi salam are included, the explanation of which follows as under. God had commanded Hazrati Ibrahim alayhi salam to sacrifice his son Ismail alayhi salam in his path. The great father and son prepared willingly to comply with his command, and the sharp knife of the father began to move along the blessed throat of Hazrati Ismail alayhi salam. But God turned this unique physical sacrifice into a spiritual sacrifice. God says, "And when we ransomed him with a tremendous sacrifice, Zibhin Azim," Surah 37, Ayat 107, that is, the sacrifice of his personality was transformed into a spiritual sacrifice. For the tremendous sacrifice means the spiritual sacrifice which is vastly greater than the physical sacrifice. The gist of the meaning of the spiritual sacrifice of Hazrati Ismail alayhi salam is that the covenant for the office of Imamat was taken from him, and its details is that he underwent various difficult spiritual trials and offered a sacrifice one after the other in all the stations of spirituality, so that the meaning of patience may be true from every aspect in the function of the Imamat. As the Quran says, "And we appointed from among them Imams, who guided by our command when they preserved with patience." Surah 32, Ayat 24. It is said that the lamb which was sacrificed instead of Hazrati Ismail alayhi salam was the tremendous sacrifice. But according to the intellect and wisdom, how can it be possible for the lamb to be greater than Hazrati Ismail alayhi salam? Therefore, by the tremendous sacrifice is meant the spiritual sacrifice, which was offered by Ishaq alayhi salam also, because they were Imam-e-Mustaqar and Imam-e-Mustawda respectively. Each Imam, whether Mustaqar or Mustawda, succeeds to the rank of Imamat after this tremendous spiritual sacrifice. The spiritual sacrifice of Hazrati Ismail was tremendously greater than his physical sacrifice in the sense that the chief of the Prophet Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu wa alayhi wasallam was born in his pure progeny, and by virtue of his physical and spiritual sacrifices, the religion of Islam became manifest and firm. Had the sacrifice of Ismail alayhi salam been confined to his physical personality, that is, he was sacrificed at the time when he was prepared, none of those spiritual sacrifices which he offered later on during his life, and those which were offered by the true Imams from his progeny, and which continue with the Imamate until the resurrection, would have taken place. Therefore, God, in transforming the physical sacrifice into a spiritual one, not only favored the great father and son, but also abundantly increased the reward. Thus, in this sense, the spiritual sacrifice is a tremendous sacrifice. It should be remembered that for the common people, physical sacrifice, i.e. martyrdom, is extremely great, for they cannot reach the spiritual sacrifice which is confined to the prophets, the imams, and the true mu'mins of higher rank. However, according to the chosen ones, spiritual sacrifice is exceedingly great. The word qurbani, sacrifice, is derived from qurban, which is in turn from qurb, closeness. Thus, qurbani implies a means which brings a person closer to God. Thus, the exoteric and esoteric guidance of the true guide is the greatest sacrifice by which the servants of God become closer to Him. If you see the ta'wil of the word zab, to slaughter, and qurbani, sacrifice, in Wajidin, the famous book on ta'wil by Pir Nasir Kisraw, it will be clear to you what ta'wil of these two words is, and in what sense the sacrifice of the natik is asas, that of the asas is the imam, and that of the imam the hujjat, and that of the hujjat is the da'i. It should be known that each natik takes the covenant from one of his close relatives, who becomes the asas, which from the ta'wili point of view is like slaughtering a sacrificial animal, and appoints him as his successor, so that he may bring the mu'mins of the community closer to God. Similarly, the asas takes the covenant of imam from his heir and makes him the means of divine proximity. The imam offers the sacrifice of the hujjat, taking the covenant from him and enriching him with spiritual wealth, makes him the fountainhead of knowledge and wisdom, so that he may be the means of ma'rifat for the servants of God. Similarly, the hujjat offers the sacrifice of da'i according to his rank. These are the sacrifices of the hudud-e-din, spiritual hierarchy, and the sacrifice of each superior had is the one under him. The story of the sacrifice of Hazrat Ismail alayhi salam also contains the wisdom that although the spiritual sacrifice is superior and more excellent in every respect, it is impossible someone to reach the great rank of spiritual sacrifice without material sacrifices. Therefore, every wise mu'min forms a habit of physical and material sacrifices prior to great spiritual sacrifices, so that thereby he may be able to offer the greatest sacrifice. Question 100. Imam and sacrifice. You have mentioned the sacrifice of the Imam in an answer to a question. But how can sacrifice be applicable to the Imam while he is the mazhar of divine light? Is the divine light not free from such a sacrifice? Is there room in the divine light for progress and increase? Answer. It should be understood that in the Imam and Imamat, two things are special, and they are personality and light. Now you should understand well that the personality has two aspects, the external, zahir, and the internal, batin, or physical and spiritual. Similarly, the light also has two aspects. One is linked with Azhal, pre-eternity, and the other is linked with the internal aspect Batin of the personality. Thus, the real meaning of the sacrifice continued to be applied to both the Zahir and the Batin aspects of the Imam's personality. Although from one aspect, sacrifice is not applicable to light, but from another aspect, the light also continues to make sacrifice. We have numerous examples of the physical sacrifices of the prophets and Imams in front of us. By the proof of these examples, we can be sure that the blessed personality of the Prophet and the Imam is the fountainhead of physical and spiritual sacrifices. For the sake of upholding the true and truth, the chief of martyrs, Hazrat Imam Hussain alayhi salam, sacrificed his holy personality. From this, two realities become crystal clear in front of us. One is that Hazrat Ismail alayhi salam sacrifice was not a show, rather it was possible for him to be sacrificed decisively. The other is that the Imam, with respect to physical and spiritual aspects of his personality, is not free from sacrifices, but no doubt with respect to light he is free from them. The Azali, pre-eternal aspect of the light is not active, fa'al. It is silent. But the aspect which is linked to the inner aspect, batin, of the perfect man is absolutely active, just as the rising flame of a bright lamp is moving and active, which continues to spread light upon light, yet the light which is seen on the clean and clear wall of the house is silent and immobile. In this example, the active, shining flame represents the moving aspect of the light which is in the spirituality of the guide of the time, Hadi-e-Zaman, and the light which is silent on the surface of the wall shows the immobile aspect of the light which is towards the Azal, pre-eternity. A clear and vivid concept of Azal is also possible only in the light of Imam of the time. Therefore, in this example, I have compared the active light of Imam and the flame of the lamp and that of his Azali, pre-eternal light with the silent light on the wall. We had said that from one aspect even the light continues to sacrifice. Truly speaking, the sacrifices of the light are the greatest. Think clearly about the sun. Since when has it existed and how long will it continue to subsist? Try to assess with what speed every moment this fountainhead of material light fills the infinite expansions of this universe with its fresh light. This is an example of the sacrifices of the material light, but the sacrifices of the spiritual light are immensely great